Page 28, Perik Yud. So this Perik is going to talk about a tzaddik. We're going to talk about tzaddikim. V'hinei. K'sha'adam magber nafshi holikis. When a person gives strength to, or gives victory to, or causes the nefesh alakis to overpower, v'nilcham kol kach bahamis, and does such battle with the nefesh bahamis, ad shemegarish u'mevayed harosh ba'machal hasmali, until the person has eradicated and eliminated the evil from the heart. So before we continue, we have to address a question that you asked last week. Yes? You said if there's the nefesh alakis and the nefesh bahamis, who's the mediator between them, who decides which one to go to? In other words, you ask the nefesh alakis, he's doing what he wants. Nefesh bahamis will do what he wants.
But it sounds like there's a third entity.
It sounds like there's a third entity. And if you look at the words over here, v'hinei kisha'adam magbir, when the person causes his nefesh alakis to overpower the nefesh bahamis, so who's the person?
That's what I'd like to know.
That's what you asked last week, right? You're consistent. So, without going into this too much in length, and Chassidus is explained that there's actually a third soul, which is not really discussed in Tanya, which is called the nefesh hasichlis, the intellectual soul. The nefesh bahamis, as we discussed, is in the heart, is emotion-based. The nefesh alikis, although it's in the mind, but it's not really an intellectual soul, it's a godly soul. It's not about intellect, it's about bittul to Hashem. And then there's the nefesh hasichlis, which sometimes is considered to be a subset of the nefesh bahamis, in as much as that it's not godly, but it is a separate entity. And it has the ability to choose between the heart, the passions of the heart, and the call, the divine call, the call of bittul of the nefesh alikis. So that's the person over here, who's the third entity over here. But be as that may, so when a person causes that the nefesh alikis is so powerful and battles the nefesh bahamis to the point that he completely eliminates and destroys the evil from within the heart, meaning to say that, as we discussed last week, level 1 in victory of the nefesh alikis is when it's victorious over the nefesh bahamis, that although the nefesh bahamis wants to do A, so the nefesh alikis says, no, we're going to do B, we're going to do something else. Level number 1 is victory in what we call machshava dibar maisa, and actuality, and thought, and speech, and in action. So when the nefesh alikis is victorious over the nefesh bahamis, not only in terms of behavior, but to the point that megarish u'mevayed harash b'machal lasmali, they're actually in the heart already. There is no evil left in the heart. And exactly what that means, that there is no evil left in the heart, we'll define that as we go along. And Dr. Rebbe says, as it says in the pasuk, "U'biyarta haram mikirbecha." Now we know this is a pasuk we have in the Torah on several occasions, and the pasuk pshat is it's a mitzvah on Bezdin to destroy the evil people when necessary. But the interesting, the wording of the pasuk leads the Mekubalim to say that there's also a deeper message over here in this mitzvah. U'biyarta hara, to eradicate the ra mikirbecha from within you, which means that it's not enough for me to do Torah mitzvahs if inside me there's still evil. Ubiyarta hara mikirbecha means that there has to be an attempt to actually to deal with the evil within and to try to eliminate it and to take it out. So when a person is successful in doing so, but ve'ein hara nehpach l'toiv mamish, this person has not yet succeeded in transforming the ra of the nefesh bahamis into goodness, so this person is nikra tzaddik she'eini gamar. This person is called an incomplete tzaddik, and he's also called v'tzadik virali. And as we will see as the perika continues, that there's slightly different nuance in each one of these titles, tzaddik she'eini gamar and tzaddik virali. The hainu, this means, what does tzaddik virali mean? The hainu Sheyesh be'adayin ma'at miz'er ra. He has a little evil. B'chol lasmali, in the left side of his heart. Ella but shekafufu batalatoy. It is completely subservient. It is repressed and subservient to the good side. Machmas meyute, because it is so little. And therefore it actually seems as if it's gone kulay legamri, completely. So as we discussed last week, this means when we say that there is the word little, it says over here that it's bottled because it is so little. What does the word little mean? Little is relative. Depends on the context. It means in comparison and relative to his love for Hashem and his passion for Torah mitzvahs, which is so great and so incredible, any desire he has for anything which is forbidden or anything from this world is completely bottled. Using the example we gave last week, it's like take a little drop of chicken soup and drop it into milk, and if there's 60 times the amount, so then it's kosher. It's bottled b'shisha. Why? What does bottled b'shisha mean? Bottled b'shisha means, where does the concept of bottled b'shisha come from? In halacha, the original idea is the taste still there?
No.
So how are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know if the taste is? Let's say a drop of milk dropped into chicken soup, or if you had a drop of something treif that. So you look at Shulchan Aruch, there are actually things in there. You can give it to an expert taster, but it has to be a goy, obviously, because a yid can't taste it. Because what if? And if it's determined that the taste is completely gone, it's not a noise and tam. It doesn't add any taste, but the taste has completely been overpowered and nullified. So then it's kosher. But that's
how you test that out.
But how do you test it? So you can give it to a goy. And if the goy is an expert tester, well, L'Poel, we don't do it today.
Maybe he has different taste buds to him.
So L'Poel Taka, we say bittul b'shishim. If it's 60-1, then we can assume that you don't have to have it any professional taste testers, but we can assume that it's completely a bottle. And the same thing is over here. Is that? But again, when we're saying it's bottle, that means that you can't feel it. You can eat. In other words, you can eat the entire dish, and you won't even notice that it was there. The same thing is by the tzaddik she'eni gamor. You look at the person not only externally, but even in the person's feelings and emotions themselves.
It's not the command the lesson.
It's exactly. It's not. It's as if it's not there. It's completely a bottle. However, it's there. In other words, just like the drop of chicken soup is still there, even if halachically it's permitted, but it's still there. If you're able to do a DNA test on this on the pot of soup, you would detect the DNA of some milk over there. It's just not detectable to our taste buds or but it's there. The same thing is also the Rav, the Nefesh Bahamis is there. The only thing is it's not felt because the person loves Hashem so much that the love for this cannot be felt anymore. And once again, this is something which we can experience in our lives also, this idea. That's not something which is so foreign. That on certain time, on different occasions, we have different loves or likes that conflict with each other. So sometimes it'll be a conflict. I want this, I like this, I like that. And sometimes the love for one entity is so great to the point that any feeling I have for the other entity is completely not felt anymore. Does that mean that it's gone? No. We gave an example last week, right? But the doctor tells you that chocolate is poison. So your love for your own life is so great and so strong to the point that you're not going to feel any love for this chocolate anymore. But deep down, do you still enjoy the taste of chocolate? You do. Yeah. So the tzaddik gomer, the tzaddik she'eni gomer, is someone who has accomplished this same thing with all Olam Haza. To him, Olam Haza is the chocolate, and to him, his life is Hashem and his connection to Hashem, and he realizes that the chocolate is poison, the Olam Haza is poison, and that if he wants a relationship with Hashem, that's something which can only destroy it and impede his ability to connect to Hashem. So the tzaddik she'eni gomer has not rid himself of the desire for Olam Haza, but the desire for Olam Haza has been overwhelmed and overpowered by his love for Hashem.
Aleva will be closer to the tzaddik she'eni gomer.
Sorry?
Halevai will be closer.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's a level,
That's correct. Yeah, and we'll see soon. It's many levels. We'll see soon. Aval ba'emes, but in truth, ilu chalaf v'halach le'legamri. In truth, had the evil completely left and gone, then not only wouldn't there be any evil left in him, but then evil also would be transformed. The nefesh habahamis would be transformed to good. And now we're going to explain what that means. But in order to explain what that means, that had, again, the Alter Rebbe is making an assertion. If there was no evil left whatsoever, then the nefesh habahamis would be transformed to goodness. The Alter Rebbe is going to explain that. But in order to explain that, we first have to shift our focus and understand what is a tzaddik gomer. Obiri Inyan, the explanation of this is Kihine tzaddik gomer, the complete tzaddik is shenepa harasha leilatoiv. There's someone who the evil within him is completely transformed to good. V'lachein nikra tzaddik v'toivlei. That's why it's called a tzaddik v'toivlei, because it's not tzaddik v'ralei. There is no ra within him. Tzaddik and everything within him is completely toiv, is completely good. How is that accomplished? How is it that the nefesh habahamis is transformed? Is through the removal of all the soiled clothing from the evil. In other words, again, to go back what we spoke about last week, there's the nefesh habahamis and there is its garments, its dirty garments. The essence of the nefesh habahamis itself is not evil. It's not inherently evil. It's desire. Nefesh habahamis is all about desiring things. However, naturally, because we are physical people, because we are born into a physical world, the nefesh habahamis, left its own devices, naturally gravitates towards worldly things, not spiritual things, and not godly things, and not holy things, but it gravitates towards gashmius, elam haza, and taivas. So that is, so to say, clothing that it wears. It's not its essence. Its essence is desire, which really can be channeled in any way. But the nature of the human being is that the nefesh habahamis is enclosed in this dirty clothing, which is the desires for this world. How does a tzaddik gomer, someone who has completely removed these soiled garments? In other words, he has no desire whatsoever for this physical world, and not because the desires have been overpowered or overwhelmed, as mentioned earlier, but because he doesn't have those desires anymore. Actually, let's take for a moment, and we'll talk about the entire process outside, and then we'll do it inside. As we discussed in the last Perek, which was, I think, 2 weeks ago, there are two different types of love for Hashem. There's Ava B'tanugim and there's Ava Krish B'yesh. There's a love which is a pleasureful love, which we also called an experiential love. And then there is, which is a pleasureful love, Ava B'tanugim, Ava Kamayim, it's calm, it's relaxed. And then there's another sort of love which is called Ava Krish B'yesh, which means a love which is like a burning fire. And that is a love of thirst, a love of yearning. The tzaddik gomer, again, is the one who has the ava b'tanugim, this experiential love, and the tzaddik viraloi is still has the tzaddik viraloi has this ava krish b'yesh, this yearning for Hashem. Meaning, the tzaddik she'eni gomer, there's me. There's what I want, there's what I enjoy, and I want Hashem. But me and Hashem remain two separate entities. We have not yet achieved that unity, which the experiential Ava comes when that unity is experienced. So the tzaddik gomer, the complete tzaddik, who has this Ava b'tanugim, this great love which he has for Hashem, this great, if you want to call it love, you want to call it unity, this experience of Hashem causes that he doesn't have any desire whatsoever for anything in this world. Why is that? Because his love for Hashem is so great, and we know that the love is the opposite of love is hate. The opposite of love is disgust in this sense. And since Hashem hates Klippa, and since Hashem finds Klippa to be repulsive, The tzaddik gomer who's experiencing Hashem and is one with Hashem, just as Hashem has a distaste and a dislike and a hate for klipa, so does he. So the tzaddik gomer looks at this world and finds it distasteful, not for any reason. In other words, not because it's an intrinsic. It's called, what Dr. Rabbi says, it's a miyus betachlis. It's like when we're walking in the street and you see someone vomited on the sidewalk. So you don't have to stop. Why am I disgusted by this? Should I be disgusted by this? It doesn't take any thinking or any contemplation. It's a natural reflex. That's how the tzaddik views everything in this world. Anything which is not l'shem shamayim, anything which is not for the purpose of Hashem, which means it is klipa, as we defined klipa in the previous chapters. The tzaddik gomer, because of his ava b'tanugim with Hashem, his oneness with Hashem, his experiencing of Hashem, and the delight of Hashem, he finds automatically anything the opposite of that to be utterly repulsive. He has no desire whatsoever for this world. So what the tzaddik gomer has effectively done is he has removed the soiled garments from his nefesh habahamis, and that frees the nefesh habahamis. And once it's free, it automatically, if it doesn't, the nefesh habahamis wants to desire something, and if it's not going to desire things from this world because it already is so repulsed and disgusted by them, then automatically it's going to desire kedusha. However, so long that the begadim hatsoyim, the soiled garments, still are around, as is the case by a tzaddik she'eni gomer, because the tzaddik she'eni gomer doesn't have that experiential pleasure and relationship with Hashem. So therefore the tzaddik gomer still has some sort of repressed, hidden desires for this world. Those hidden desires, those soiled garments, prevent the nefesh habahamis of the tzaddik she'eni gomer from being transformed into holiness. Now this sounds very subtle difference. Yeah, transformed, not transformed. You know, we're talking about people.
How's that accomplished anyways?
How's that? It's accomplished through Ava B'Tanugim. The process is,
What
we have over here is,
from the tzaddik morale to the tzaddik v'toifla. It's very difficult.
well, first we have to get to low level. But the point over here is, before we continue, the process is Ava B'Tanugim, which removes the soiled garments, which allows the Nefesh HaBahamis to be transformed to Kedusha.
קצת מתוך שלא לשמה יצא לשמה.
Yeah. The tzaddik, I know I said this before and I'll say it again. The tzaddik she'eni gomer is something that we can relate to. Because in our lives, we all deal with conflicting and competing desires. Desire for Kedusha and desire for other things. How do we handle that? So in different areas of our life, we handle it in different ways. In some areas we handle it by failing the test and succumbing to the Nefesh HaBahamis. Let's be honest, right? In other areas, we struggle, we're victorious, and the Nefesh HaLokis is victorious. There are other areas in our life where we're more successful, and the struggle becomes lessened also. What does that mean when the struggle becomes lessened? That means that how does the struggle, I mean, there could be various ways. When one way is maybe we got used to it and became a habit, but if it's someone who is Oived Hashem and serving Hashem, the way the struggle becomes lessened is because I learn more, I think more,
And your enjoyment is.
and I enjoy more, I appreciate more, and the more I appreciate Kedusha, the less I'll have a desire for the other things. I mean, this is something we all experience in different areas of our life, because as I mentioned, all these different terms really apply to every single one of us in different arenas of our life. There are areas in our life where our desire to do something evil is completely completely overwhelmed. Yeah, because in those areas, we don't even have, we barely feel a desire to do them because our feelings to the contrary are so much stronger. I know this, we're talking very simple things. I think we spoke about this last week. No one here is about to go kill people. And then there is, how many, what? No one here is about to go kill a person. Even someone got you angry. Right. We're not talking here about the emes definition of the terms tzaddik, beinoni, and rasha, because if that's what we're talking about, we're all Rishayim. However, every single one of these madrigas, in a small way, we can find within ourselves. When it comes to eating chametz on Pesach, how many of us have a desire? Imagine you sitting by the seder and suddenly you want bread. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Not yet. They're working on it.
Maybe by the time Achen Shel Pesach comes along, you're having a little. You're thinking about the pizza, right?
Pizza.
Yeah.
They're working on 17-minute bread.
Sorry, they're working on 7th hour. Okay.
Come on, like bread.
Israeli matzahs are like bread.
Yeah.
Right? They're thick, the Israeli matzahs.
Delicious.
They're different from Ashkenaz
Soft?
matzahs. They're thicker.
I'm gonna eat for you. It's okay.
What?
I'm gonna eat it for you.
I wanted your
It's
input on that.
very expensive.
Totally different.
Talk about the madriga of tzaddikim, and just we're talking here about Pesach and chametz. I hope I'm remembering the story correctly. I read it like 2-3 weeks ago. There was this person who was involved in the matzah bakery in Kfar Chabad, and he would come every year Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe every year Rosh Hashanah there was Kishel Bracha. I don't know. The Rebbe did Kishel Bracha Rosh Hashanah and also after Simchas Torah. So I don't remember which one it was. And the Rebbe always had bottles. The Rebbe would give wine to every single person that came by, but the Rebbe always had little bottles of mashka. And to specific special individuals for certain reasons, communal leaders, rabbis, the Rebbe would give them a little bottle of mashka also. So this person, the Rebbe always gave him a bottle of mashka. And then one year he went by and he didn't, for the matzah bakery. And one year, for his activities in the matzah bakery, one year he went by and the Rebbe didn't give him, and he felt very bad. Well, what could be that reason? Not so much insulted. Like, what is this? What is this? What is the meaning of this? I hope I'm telling you the story correct. But the bottom line is that he was called in the next day by the Rebbe secretary. The Rebbe secretary told him that he shouldn't be offended that he didn't get a bottle of mashka. But there's an Indian that every single year on Rosh Hashanah to take a new hiddur. It says every year Rosh Hashanah we're supposed to take a new. And this year, the hiddur that the Rebbe took upon himself was that there's going to be absolutely no mixing of Pesach and with anything of chametz, even in the mind. So therefore, he couldn't give you a bottle of mashka for them because of your activities in the matzah bakery, because it's chametz. So you asked what's the avodah of tzaddikim. You asked that last week or 2 weeks ago. So avodah is that in the mind there shouldn't be any association in Pesach and chametz. That's. But back to what we're talking about. So sometimes there's a balanced war between the nefesh and sometimes there's a less of a balanced war. And the more we work on ourselves, the more we become holy. What we're trying to do is create this imbalance between the nefesh and the nefesh bahamis. And in one area of our lives, 2 areas, more areas, to make the desires of the nefesh bahamis less and less palpable, less and less discernible, less and less strong, less and less vocal, and to strengthen the voice of the nefesh elokis. The tzaddik she'eni gomer is the person who has perfected this. In other words, perfected this idea of strengthening the voice and the feelings of the nefesh elokis to the point that the nefesh bahamis is pretty much irrelevant. And not just, it is irrelevant, it's not felt. But it's there. Deep down it's there. It's been repressed, but it's there. Can you say this is a person, the tzaddik sheni gomer, when he looks at something in Olam Haza, that yes, he'll be repulsed by it somewhat, but is he inherently repulsed by Elam Haza? No, because the Nefesh Bahamis is still there. The Tzaddik Gomer is in a different stratosphere. The Tzaddik Gomer is somewhere else. Tzaddik Gomer is someone who inherently has no desire for anything in this world. He inherently experiences this unity with Hashem, and this has this amazingly pleasurable relationship with Hashem, which he experiences, and as a result of that, there is no me, there is no ego, there's no what I want. Because that's another aspect. The tzaddik she'eni gomer, the ava kirish be'esh, who has a love like a fire, that means I want, there's me, there's the me that wants. Okay, so I want more kedusha. My desire for kedusha is so much stronger than my desire for things in this world. It overpowers. Notice that the ava of the tzaddik gomer isn't I want. It isn't this fiery love. He's moved past that point. It's not I want, it's he's reached that place and he's become one with Hashem. Hashem's desires are his desires, naturally. That which Hashem loves, he loves. That which Hashem despises, he despises. So, when I'm learning Tanya, it occurs to me that although there are different levels, there's the Rasha and there's the Beinini. We'll find out within the Rasha, there are two levels. There's the Tzaddik Gomer, Tzaddik She'eni Gomer. And sometimes you ask, okay, so if you had to where would you put the line? Where's the divide? And I think the line is between the Tzaddik Gomer and everyone beneath it. Because everyone beneath it, there's me, there's what I want. How much do I want Hashem? How much I want this world? So sometimes I want the world this much and Hashem this much, unfortunately, in some people's lives. Some people it's more even. Some people they manage to pick it up here. Some people it's so disparate that they barely feel the desires for El Mazat, Tzaddik She'eni Gomer. But then there's the Tzaddik Gomer. It was in a different place. It's not about me wanting. I'm one with Hashem, and Hashem's will is my will. That's a completely different level. And as we'll see, therefore, Tzaddikim She'enim Gemurim are much more common than Tzaddik Gomer. A Tzaddik Gomer is really a rare phenomenon, and ultimately, a Tzaddik Gomer is not something that we can achieve. No, it's a gift from heaven, because as long as I'm dealing with what I desire, so I can work on desiring this, I can work on desiring that, but that's all on the level of Tzaddik She'eni Gomer. What do I want? So I want Kedusha so much. How do I lift myself to a place where my desires don't matter anymore? Where I'm just reflecting Hashem's desires? That's a gift from above. That's pretty much you're losing your ego, you're losing your identity, and you're becoming subsumed in Kedusha. That is the level of a Tzaddik Gomer, and that is something which is pretty much incomprehensible for the rest of us, what that means. And obviously it's something which is given from above, because you can't lose your identity on your own. You can't give up your identity.
Why this tzaddik got this gift from Hashem, and the rest of us did not get it? What's his?
That was my question.
You're jealous?
Yes.
It's good.
All man is not created equal by God.
Very good. Very good. That is true.
You don't want to tell me that.
What do you want? If Hashem wanted everyone to be tzaddikim gemurim,
Why not?
because he has a purpose to fulfill in this world, and it wouldn't be fulfilled if everyone was tzaddik gomer. See, the tzaddik gomer wouldn't ask that question. Wouldn't say that. Why? You're worried about yourself. You want to be a tzaddik. The tzaddik gomer isn't worried about himself.
He got it as a gift. This is why it doesn't work. I
Anyways.
did not get it, and I worry why I'm not in this level.
What do you want to do? What do you want in this
I want
world?
to be a tzaddik gomer.
Why?
It's beautiful. No desire for anything.
So you're not thinking about Hashem. You're thinking about yourself.
Well, Hashem has to help me to get to this level.
That's the gift.
You have to pray more.
I think the less you think about yourself, the more it's likely that you might become a tzaddik gomer one day. I think we have to mention again what we mentioned in the past, and we're going to talk about this many times over the coming months and years. Tzaddik gomer is holier and higher than those of us who aren't. That doesn't make him greater. It doesn't make him more important. He has his function to serve in this world, and we have our function to serve in this world. I don't think that you can say Hashem loves a tzaddik gomer more than he loves a beinoni. It's not.
Everybody.
Yeah, okay, he loves everyone, but I'm saying is at the end of the day, someone who does their best and does Torah, does mitzvahs, and still has to struggle. So that person is doing his job equally as. It says. What do we say in Shema? It says who Moshe v'Aaron, then it says who Aaron or Moshe. It says once Moshe before Aaron, then once Aaron before Moshe. So what does Rashi say? This teaches us that what?
They're shkulim.
They're shkulim, they're the same. What does that mean that they're the same? When Moshe, we know, was the greatest Anav, and he was the greatest Navi, and no one before, no one after approached, came close to Moshe. And when Aaron, for a second, thought to compare himself to Moshe Rabbeinu,
Slip.
what happened to Eberster quickly? No, not that. Talking about later by the Parshas and the Parshas Baloischa, when he said, "What? Why aren't you married? I'm also a Navi and I'm married." And what does Hashem tell him? Madua lo yiresim. Who are you? How did you not fear to speak against Moshe Rabbeinu? So what does it mean that they're shkulim? No, it's a Pasha Rashi. How did you understand this?
Their full potential.
They both reached their full potential, exactly. Aaron did his job and Moshe did his job. And Aaron reached the level that he was able to reach, and Moshe reached the level he was able to reach, and Hashem says to me, they're shkulim, they're the same.
But Tzaddik Gamor, he has to be example to us. It's part what Hashem gave him.
Very good.
This.
I would venture to say that the Tzaddik Gomer is more about serving the rest of us. It's like, is the general for the foot soldiers or are the foot soldiers for the general? Who's more important?
Both are equally important.
Who's more important?
General.
The general's more important?
No.
Soldiers.
Really? The general without the foot soldiers is...
Nothing.
Nothing. He's the general's making the decision.
But he's nothing on his own, again.
Nobody with him.
He's nothing. You need to have the general and you need to have the foot soldiers. Now, who's higher? Who's smarter? The general. But who's more important? You can't say the general's more important. In other words, which one is more important to have? This one or this one? They're both the same. And in fact, at the end of the day, who's the one who gets the victory? The general or the foot soldiers?
General.
No.
Everybody.
Yes. You
No.
ever hear
Who's the one who executes the job? Who's the one who actually gets the job done?
foot soldiers?
Foot soldiers. General gets the credit, but who gets the job done is the foot soldiers. The general's job is to lead and to guide and to inspire and to strategize. And you could look at that. You could look at this in the same way. There's the Tzaddik Gomer. His job is to lead and to guide and to strategize. Meaning to say, really, what is the function of the Tzaddik Gomer? Is to serve the foot soldiers, to serve us. So who's more important? Again, the Tzaddik Gomer is much holier and much higher. There's no question, and is definitely a more enjoyable state. At the same time, there's not. What's interesting is that you have later. I'll give you a little sneak preview. In Perek Chav Zayin and Tanya, the Rebbe talks about someone who's depressed that he's not a tzaddik. You have to wait till you get there. The Rebbe says over there, V'lachein al yipay leiv adam alav, let not a person's heart fall within him. V'layira levavi ma'oid, and let him not be very distressed. Gam im yakein kol yam b'chamazum, even if his entire life he spent in this battle against Nafshe Bahamas. But there's one word which is very interesting. He doesn't say v'layira levavi. He says v'layira levavi ma'oid. He says don't be very distressed that you're not a tzaddik. But a little distressed, you're allowed to be. So there's validity. In other words, at the end of the day, the desire to be a tzaddik also is a very positive thing. I want to serve Hashem with that beauty and with that sweetness and without the battle and the Yetzer Hara, throwing in a machshava zara into my head every 3 minutes. So it's good to desire to be a tzaddik. It shows on a noble aspiration and it'll get you somewhere. But don't be very upset about it. At the end of the day, you're doing what Hashem wants you to do. And that's again, Perek Chav Zayin. Okay. So we have here again. So let's talk about the process one more time. The Tzaddik Gomer, the process is Ahava b'tanugim, which leads to Hasaras begadam hatsoyin, the removal of the soiled garments. Meaning there's absolutely the Ahava b'tanugim causes that there's absolutely no desire anymore for anything in this world, which is not holiness, and that leads to the Nefesh Bahamis being transformed to Kedusha. And then when the Nefesh Bahamis is transformed to Kedusha, that's something else entirely.
So what happens if he can't fulfill his goals? The tzaddik gomer, as far as communicating and administrating his, he has goals to be taken care of. Let's say
I don't know.
He doesn't fulfill it.
This is all part of the Sefer Shel Tzaddikim.
Oh, that was
You really want to see that Sefer, right?
yeah, that's right.
I once heard from a chassid. His name is Tuvia Bolton. He's a Rosh Yeshiva of Balshuva Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. So he says that well, he lives in Israel, but he comes to America quite often, fundraisers, I believe. And every single time, when he's on the plane, so as a Lubavitcher, so what does he do? He pulls out his tefillin and he goes over to people and asks them to put on tefillin. And he says every single time it's a struggle. Because let me tell you something, going over to a stranger and asking them to put on tefillin is not easy. I know Lubavitcher, sure, no problem. It's always, it's never easy to solicit. So he says, he was once talking to my friend and I heard him talking, he says, every single time, so the Yetzer Hara comes and gives him a million reasons why not to do it. They're soon going to be serving the meal and I'm going to get in the way. Or no one's anyways interested, they're all sleeping. Or, this person is not Jewish. In other words, you know how it works, the Yetzer Hara comes up with all the reasons. Why not to do what you ought to do and what you should do. He says, finally he figured out a mechanism of how to deal with this. He said, I think to myself, when I want to do something wrong, Yetzer Hara comes to entice me to do something wrong. So I throw all my logical reasons at it why I shouldn't do it. What is the response of the Yetzer Hara? You're right, but I want to do it anyways. It doesn't come and counter. It doesn't argue and explain to you. Those were brilliant arguments. But you know what? I want it. I want to do it anyways.
Do it.
He says, why can't it work the same way with the Naftali Silberberg? The Yetzer Tov can turn to the Yetzer Hara and say, you're right. All these reasons you're giving me why I shouldn't do it are right. But I want to do it anyways. And you get up and you go, and he says that every time that I think that and I get up and I go do it. I found that very interesting, because that is something which is about the Nefesh Bahamis, which Nefesh Elokis doesn't have. But I want to. That powerful I want to, which has the ability to bulldoze over opposition and over all the good reasons in the world that you have. But I want to. How many people have destroyed themselves? Illustrious people, whether it's politicians or whatever, by doing stupid things. And why? They knew that it was stupid. They knew that these things are going to ruin them. But I want to. That's the power of the Nefesh Bahamis. The incredible power of I want to. Now imagine taking that power and using it towards Kedusha, which is really what this person on the plane was doing in an artificial manner. In other words, he wasn't really, he was using it as like a Heira B'Avodas Hashem.
He was
Successful, yeah. But it was, again, that was by by him, it was a tactic, You're going to do this, I'm going to say this. But imagine a person who really is able to transform that. And that's the difference between the Tzaddik Gomer and the Tzaddik She'enei Gomer. They're both holy, and they both don't have any negative desires. But in terms of the passion for Inyanim of Kedusha, and for Torah and for mitzvahs, you can't compare the two. Because the Tzaddik Gomer, it's not one, it's two. The Nefesh Bahamis has also been harnessed, and it's not only two, but it's one. But the Nefesh Bahamis also has a power to it, which the Nefesh Elokis doesn't have. Nefesh Elokis is in the head. It's calm, it's relaxed. Nefesh Bahamis is hot and it's boiling, and that's why. That's a Tzaddik Gomer. You see that Resicha, the passion of Kedusha. It's not from the Nefesh Elokis. That's from the Nefesh Bahamis that you're seeing. And this is really where you see the difference between the Tzaddik Gomer and the Tzaddik She'enei Gomer, is in this incredible passion for Kedusha, which comes from the fact that the Nefesh Bahamis has been transformed. Let's do this inside. Let's start again, 4 lines from the bottom of page 28. We'll go back a drop of Ubir Inyan. Ubir Inyan. Kihine Tzaddik Gomer. What is a Tzaddik Gomer? Shenep acharash leila toiv. the evil within him, the Nefesh Bahamis, was transformed to good. V'lachein nikra tzadik v'toiv lei. That's why it's called tzadik v'toiv lei, because there's no ra within him. Everything is toiv. How does this happen? How is it that he caused that the Nefesh Bahamis should be transformed? Because he removed the soiled garments. L'gamri mehara of the evil, the hainu, which means limais ma'oid, to be extremely revolted b'tanuge elam haza, by the pleasures of this world. Lis'anigbam, the notion, the thought of taking pleasure in them. L'malais taivas haguf bilvad, in order to fulfill the bodily pleasures. V'lei l'avodas Hashem, not for the service of Hashem, to the tzaddik is absolutely repulsive. Note, but you should note over here again, the notion of taking pleasure in this world, if it is for avodas Hashem, that the tzaddik gomer has no issue with. Again, l'malis taivas haguf bilvad v'lei l'avodas Hashem. To the tzaddik, the thought of enjoying this world, with the purpose being only bodily pleasure, that is something which he finds repulsive. And why is that? Because anything which is done only for bodily pleasure, or obviously anything that is forbidden, where does it come from? That's all klippa. As we defined klippa in the past, klippa is anything which doesn't openly display holiness, which is not for Hashem, which is not batal. Anything which is from the sitra achra, Hatzadi Gomer who soinoi betachlis hasina. The Tzadi Gomer has an ultimate hatred for it. Again, ultimate hatred means inherent hatred. Not only I hate this because it impedes my ability to have something else, but I hate this because it itself is a despicable and hateful thing. The Tzaddik She'eni Gomer, his dislike for Elam Haza is because it gets in his way for his like for Kedusha. The tzaddik gomer is one with Hashem, and therefore his dislike for klippa is betachlis, is inherent. And why is this? How has the tzaddik gomer been able to rid himself of the soiled garments? This is machmas goydel avasya Hashem, because of his great love to Hashem, ukdushasei be'ava rabba, and the holiness of the tzaddik, or the holiness of Hashem, be'ava rabba b'tanugim, this great love, av b'tanugim v'chiba yisera, an incredible affection, hanal, which we learned about in the last chapter. Because love and hate are one opposite of the other. Kidiksiva, it says in the pasuk, Tachlis Sina Senesim, David HaMelech says, he talks about the enemies of Hashem. He says, Tachlis Sina Senesim, I hate them with the ultimate hatred. La'oyivim hoyuli, they are my enemies. And then the next pasuk is, Chakreini v'dal levavi, asking Hashem, investigate and check out my heart. And what's he saying? He says, if you'll investigate and check out my heart, what will you see? The incredible love that I have for Hashem, and because of that love, therefore I have the ultimate hatred for those who despise Hashem. Commensurate to the greatness of one's love for Hashem, that's how great is the hatred for the sitra achra of amius bara, and the ultimately being repulsed by the evil betachlis. Ki amius uhepech ha'ava mamish k'mayasina. Just like hate is the opposite of love, so too mius, being repulsed by something, also that is the opposite of love. That all is the tzaddik gomer. The tzaddik she'eni gomer. What is the tzaddik she'eni gomer? She'eni seina sitra achra betachlis. He doesn't have this ultimate hatred for sitra achra betachlis asina. His disgust for evil also isn't the ultimate disgust. As long as the person's hatred and disgust for Elam Haza is not complete, al karchach, we must say that nishar is a shemetz ava v'tainug l'sham. They're still in a repressed state. There still exists some sort of love and pleasure in Elam Haza. The soiled garments have not been completely removed, completely. Therefore, and that's what's preventing the complete transformation of the nefesh habahamis. Because because there still are those soiled garments. Ella batshu batal b'miyutay, but it is batal that any desire that this tzaddik sheni gomer has for anything in this world is completely batal because of its how insignificant it is in comparison relative to his love for Hashem. It's considered as nothing. So he's called tzaddik v'ra'aloi because there are those dirty garments. There is that desire for Olam Haza, but it's subservient and batal loy to the holiness of him. Valkain, and the fact that he still has these soiled garments, that is a proof that Gam Avasil Hashem Eine Betachlis, that also his love for Hashem is not complete. In other words, it's not a Ava Betanugim. V'lchein nikrat tzaddik she'eni gomer. So tzaddik she'eni gomer describes what? He's not complete, meaning his love for Hashem isn't complete. His love for Hashem is only on the level of Ava Krish B'yesh, and not on the level of Ava Betanugim. And tzaddik v'ra'aloi describes his relationship to this world. That that he still has desire for this world, but it's loy, it's batal. So the two terms, tzaddik she'eni gomer and tzaddik v'ra'aloi, describe two different aspects of this tzaddik. And the same thing is the other way around. Tzaddik gomer, why is he called a complete tzaddik? Because his love for Hashem is complete. He has avi b'tanugim. Tzaddik v'toivloi describes the fact that he's a tzaddik and the nefesh habahamis is toiv, has become good, and loy is completely towards him. So the different names describe different attributes. V'hinei madrega zu, this level of tzaddik sheni gomer mischalekes lervavis madregas. There are tens of thousands of levels of tzaddik sheni gomer. Be'inyan, and it's both quantity and quality. Be'inyan b'chinas miyut hara hanishar. This, how much of this ra is left over? Ma'achas ma'arba yisoidus haroim. In other words, remember in the first period we mentioned that the nefesh habahamis, it's not all one thing. It has different yisoidus, it has different elements. So it's possible that maybe some of the elements are gone, some remain. So there is, the element of fire comes from it anger and arrogance, and then there's the element of wind, which comes from it wasting time. Element of earth, which from it comes laziness, laziness and dejection, and then there's water from which comes pleasure. So which one of these, which one remains in the tzaddik sheni gomer? That's number one. And number two, how insignificant, how batal is it? B'shishim al derech mashal, is it batal 1 in 60, a be'elef 1 in 1,000, or a vavar 1 in 10,000, or kiyetz al derech mashal. Most of the tzaddikim, the many tzaddikim throughout the generations, are tzaddik she'eni gomer. Tzaddik she'eni gomer, what's the biggest difference? Tzaddik she'eni gomer, tzaddik gomer, to summarize, there is me and there is Hashem, and I love Hashem. That's tzaddik she'eni gomer. Tzaddik gomer, the me and the Hashem, that divide has been, it's all one, totally subsumed and experiencing. Kedisa v'Gemara, the Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah that Tamneisar Alfei Tzadiki Kaimei Kamei Kadosh Baruch Hu, 18,000 tzaddikim that stand before Hashem. And the way the Alter Rebbe apparently understands this is not a reference necessarily to numbers of individuals, but there are 18,000 levels of tzaddikim she'enim gemurim, because again, how far has this person progressed? How much love does he have for Hashem to the point, and how negligible does that make any desire that he has for this world? You want to talk about a tzaddik gomer? Al-Mailas tzaddik gomer. Husha Amar Shimon Bar Yochai. In the same Gemara, Masechta Sukkah over there, Shimon Bar Yochai said, Ra'isi b'nei Aliyah. I saw b'nei Aliyah, elevated people of Vehei Mu'atim.
Very little.
Very little. In fact, he says over there that if there's two of them, it's me and my son. And if there's one, it's only me. That's what he said. When you're at tzaddik gomer, you can say that, because there isn't an ounce of me or of arrogance in there.
Yeah.
Misnandam Sakta Saita, you have over there in the Mishnah where it says, Mishemes, trying to remember what it was. This one, I think it's Mishemes Rabbi. It's Batal Anava.
Nova, yes.
And then Reb Nachman said, right? Was Reb Nachman? It says, "Letisni anava dikana." Don't say there's no anavim. There's me around. There's humble people. There's still me. It sounds strange, right, to say that. But when someone is on that madriga, it's about the Eibishter. It's about Torah. Very good. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, "Bnei Aliyah." There are very few of those. What are Bnei Aliyah? Shalchein nekraim Bnei Aliyah. Tzaddik Gomer is called a Ben Aliyah. Why? Shemahapchim hara. Because what is the word Aliyah? Aliyah can mean elevated, as an elevated person, or Aliyah can mean also when we elevate something. The Tzaddik Gomer is the one who elevates the Ra within him, the Nefesh Bahamis to Kedusha. Shemahapchim hara u'maylam meisei l'Kedusha. And that's why a Tzaddik Gomer is called Bnei Aliyah. K'de'isa b'Zohar b'Akdama, and based on you understand what it says in the Zohar and the Akdama. It describes in the Akdama to Zohar that Rabbi Chia, the Neshama Rabbi Chia, wanted to go to the palace, the Heichal of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Gan Eden. So Shama Kala, he heard a voice, Nafik v'Amar, that came out from the palace and said, Man min chayin, who from amongst you? Who
darkness become light.
who transformed darkness to light. V'ta'amin meridim lemiska, and that which tastes bitter transformed it into sweetness. Ad la yesun hacha, before you got here. In other words, anyone who, while you were still in the world, before you got here, if you transformed darkness into light and bitterness into sweetness, in other words, if you're a Bnei Aliyah, if you're a Tzaddik Gomer, then you could come, but otherwise you can't come. That's what he said. So what, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai didn't have Achnasas Archim? He only allowed his colleagues to come? What does that say about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai?
It's like a million going.
Can you imagine if you had in the Tzaddiks, you went to a Rebbe, and on the door is a sign, only Rebbes are allowed in here. only Tzaddikim can come in here.
They open in Mironi's place, that's it.
In Iran, everyone's allowed in. So why in Gan Eden he was only welcome Tzaddikim Gemurim? So elitist over there, yeah.
Maybe you can come in. People come in for different purposes,
Okay.
so that the host evaluates who's based on your character, your level, your mitos, where you fit in, and he's not going to waste his time if talking about things or relating to things if it's not shy for that person. It's not.
That's one way of looking at it, but there's another way, which is we have to recalibrate our thinking about this. We're talking about Gan Eden and a palace in Gan Eden. So because we're physical, so we're busy imagining on the clouds a palace being built, and the neshamas with wings, and they're flying over to the palace, and they're being stopped by a guard over there. Gan Eden isn't a place. It's not a physical place. And the Heichal of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Gan Eden also isn't a place. It's a level. Gan Eden is a spiritual level. And within Gan Eden, there are many, in other words, it encompasses many levels, and then there's the level of Shimon Bar Yochai. And the palace of Shimon Bar Yochai is the level of Shimon Bar Yochai. So Shimon Bar Yochai is saying, you can't come to this level unless you're there. In other words, in the physical world, I could be standing next to a very, very holy tzaddik, and by virtue of the fact that we're spatial and we're three-dimensional, so although he happens to be in the world of Atzilus at the moment, and that level, and I happen to be wherever I happen to be, but spatially I happen to be standing 2 feet away from him. But the moment that you take all physical ideas out of your mind, and you realize that we're completely talking only about the spiritual over here, and for one thing to approach another means that spiritual level attained that higher spiritual level, so we understand that Shimon Bar Yochai, he wasn't being inhospitable, he's simply stating a fact. My level, you want to get there, you have to be at that level, otherwise you're just not there. So we have, Shimon Bar Yochai is explaining that this Zohar explains to us what is a Ben Aliyah, what are Bnei Aliyah? Bnei Aliyah are those tzaddikim gemurim who are mahapech, who they transform the nefesh habahamis, the darkness into light, and the bitterness into sweetness. And as we learn later on in Tanya and Perich Chav Zayin, that there are different types of Hashem has two different types of enjoyments, and one of them is the transformation of darkness and bitterness, and the other one is the avodah that we do, which is the suppression of darkness and bitterness. But that's for a different time and a different day. Just 1 second. We are, Emir Hashem, next week, we're going to talk about, the Alter Rebbe is going to give us another reason why Tzaddik and Gemurim are called Bnei Aliyah, and that has to do with the Kabbalistical concept, something which we're probably familiar with, of L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Brichu Shechinte. We're going to learn about next week what that means exactly. What is Yichud, and what is Kudsha Brichu, and what is Shechinte, and what the connection is to Tzaddik. And Emir Hashem also, we will connect that next week. We will talk a little about the Yom Tov of Purim according to Chassidus, and because that's actually going to be related to what we're talking about next week. So we'll have next week a hybrid of a Tanya Purim share.
Erev Purim.